The First Book of Moses, Bereshayath, Chapter 1, First Creation by Elohim. In the former time periods, as a powerful sign of working, chief son and heir Elohim filled with choice things, behold, as a sign Shemayim, the place of the names, and behold, as a sign Aratz, the chief place of running. But observe how Aratz was unorganized and empty, and Shishak rose up from the deep waters, went up to its face, but the Ruach Elohim, as a wall of protection, moved violently upon the surface of the waters. Elohim then declared, light he will exist, and light he will exist. And Elohim gazed upon that beautiful light, and Elohim made distinctive the light from the darkness. And to the light Elohim called out the name Ya'un, and to the darkness he called out the name Leah Laha. This was the close and the dawn of the first age.
The Ketub Abarayath, or the Paleo-Hebrew, is a language over 5,000 years old. It chronicles a story branching forth from ancient time. His story, Yahweh. Walk into his story. Read the Paleo-Hebrew scriptures.
All right, shalom. This is Carly at Ancient Paths Wellness. Sorry, I get choked up just watching that intro. That is so beautiful. If you haven't checked out the Paleo Hebrew Scriptures in the Unexpected Cosmology store, definitely do that and help fund the translation of the Paleo from the whole Scripture perspective. So I just love that. But anyway, I've been wanting to offer these monthly teaching calls, Q&A sessions to my clients and my followers, where we can just hone in on a specific topic. So I was chatting with Noel recently, and we decided to partner together with the Took community, since a lot of people on here are on that same stream. So we're calling these our Temple Restoration Talks. And it's going to be about a 30-minute teaching on our particular topic for the month, and then a Q&A at the end. So I'm going to pray as we begin, and then we're just going to jump right into the teaching. Father Yah, thank you so much for today. Thank you for using this technology for good and for your glory. I just pray that this information would bless those that hear it. And I pray, as I always do, that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart would be pleasing and acceptable in your sight. In the name of the Son, the Aleph through the Tav, Yeshua. Amen. I always love to pray that. Psalms 19 is so beautiful. If you get a chance today, just read the whole thing beginning to end. Read it in the Paleo if you have it. But it's just a beautiful picture of how we're called to live in the created order, from the Shamayim to the Aretz. And so we're going to talk about that today a little bit, and what that has to do with our health and the season that we just entered into. But I like to say all the time, we are Daniels in Babylon. So we live in this realm. We live in this Egypt, I've heard a friend call it, because we really are, trapped into this slavery system from the time we're born. But we have to function. We have to remain faithful to Yah, just like Daniel was in Babylon. Even though he worked for the king, I mean, he was like a magician, a sorcerer for the king. But his heart, his intention was toward Yah and towards his righteous ways. And so that is my call. That's something that the Father has called me to do, to help lead people out of Babylon. That's the audible mandate I got from him. And particularly in the realm of health and healing, that is the area that I love to help people. And so I am a biofeedback and wellness practitioner. I'm an Aleph-Tav body practitioner. I recently got trained in Coherent Restore. So that's a pretty amazing healing modality too. But what I love to say is that we are made to be bioenergetic temples for his glory. It's so much more than physical. It's emotional, it's spiritual, it's electric, it's magnetic. It's who we're called to be. That tabernacle, that mishkanim, that's who we are. We are the mishkanim, vessels for Yah's glory, manifested on the earth. But we get clogged up. Our temples get dirty. They get, full of junk. We have to clean and restore our temples. I love to use the Maccabee analogy. For years, my family and I celebrated Hanukkah. We've kind of moved away from that in recent years. But when my boys were little, we used to listen to the Maccabees. We used to find this guy on YouTube that would read it in a very like drone voice. It was kind of like the Charlie Brown, like wah, wah, wah. But as I got older, we would take turns reading the stories of the Maccabees, Maccabees 1, 2, and just reading about this process of taking back the temple and restoring it, cleaning it out, getting out all the pagan junk, the filth, and cleaning out and restoring that unto Yah. So that's the analogy I like to use when it comes to our temples, because we have to do that regularly. We live in a world where we are constantly getting clogged up, junked up, and again, on every level. So we just entered into the winter solstice. I think on Greg's calendar, we call it Greg's calendar, the Gregorian calendar. It's today, but if you're watching the sun, moon, and stars, it was a few days ago. And so the winter solstice is a time when the days are the shortest. And my friend, Dr. Christian, always likes to say, we are not apart from the seasons. And that is 100% true. So the same energetic force, the same building blocks of life, the Aleph Tav, the code of creation, is what makes up the seasons. It's what makes up everything we see in nature. And it's the same information that is inside of us that makes us. So when we come back to plugging back into that created order, I like to say plugging back into the matrix of life. We live in this artificial matrix now. I mean, y'all still using it. It's how we can communicate on this video. But we need to plug back into the matrix of life. I like to say we're in the womb of the morning. So when we plug back into what's going on in creation, we find a lot of healing. And winter is an excellent time for gut healing. It's actually one of the best times to work on healing your gut. If you've been dealing with digestive issues, leaky gut issues, any kind of digestive problem, this is a time of year to really hone in on healing that. And we're going to break down why. So we just entered into, or we're exiting the month Kislev. All of the months have a particular tribe that they're associated with, a particular sign in the stars, sign in the heavens. And I'm excited. I'm doing an upcoming podcast on that called Written in the Stars. So I'll post a link to my channel on here as well. But we're connected to that deeply. And so it has to do with dreaming. It has to do with rest. In these seasons of life, we see this circular pattern. And I talked about this a little bit when Noel and I talked about bioenergetics. But there's this circle always happening in life. And there's a time of evolution and involution. And I'm not talking about like evolutionary, scientific rot. I'm talking about evolution is an outpouring, involution is an indwelling. And so in this circle of life, we're either pouring out or we're drawing in. So when the winter solstice starts, this is the time of involution. And if you look all around in nature, that's what we see. We see the plants die, the leaves fall off the trees, the seeds fall to the ground, they go dormant, so to speak. But nature is doing this as well. So it's going dormant, it's hibernating, it's sleeping, it's resting, and it's a time to turn inward. So for us, it's a time of replenishing, resting, rebuilding, and repairing. It's a drawing in, which is the opposite of the spring when we're beginning to push out, pour out. And that's what nature is doing as well. So in my practice, when I work with clients, we like to tackle not just the physical elements of our healing, but emotional and spiritual as well. So physical is really like the tip of the iceberg. I mean, it's this little bit that we see on the surface, and we can affect change by dealing with the physical, but it's usually not long lasting. It's usually just a quick fix, which we don't want. We want to get to the root. Emotional is underneath the water, and then at the big base is spiritual. It's really the bulk of all of it. So in talking about winter healing and partnering with the winter solstice and the seasons, we're going to dig into physical, emotional, and spiritual. All right, so we're going to start with physical. Physically, it is a time to repair and replenish our gut lining. Our digestive tract pretty much runs throughout our entire body. It starts here in the nasal passages in the mouth, and then goes all the way down through. So it's affecting so many different body energy systems, physical structures. And it's really the center of all of it. As a society, we have gotten really bad about eating so many different complicated foods. So we eat something sweet, we eat something salty, we eat something hot, we eat something cold, we drink water, we drink carbonated water, we drink milk, and then we drink, our body's just like, please give me a break. So when we're talking about healing our gut, we really want to get back to simple foods, simple, soft cooked foods. It is not a time to eat raw. Winter is actually a horrible time to eat any kind of salads, fruits. And again, I'm laying this all out there. I'm going to give you some practical solutions on how to walk this out at the end. But ancestrally, if you think about it, there's nothing to glean from the earth. We live on a farm and ranch, and so we raise goats. And this time of the year, we have to supplement them a lot because there's nothing for them to eat as much in nature. So think about that for us. That's when our ancestors would eat things like dried fruit and nuts. They would eat a lot of soups, broth, meat that they hunted, grains that they had stored up for the year. So fresh milled grains, I'm really big on fresh milled grains. I love einkorn, spelt, if you're trying to look for something that's lower in gluten. But think ancestrally. So I really am honing into this year. And for the last few weeks, I've just been making a lot of soups and fresh milled bread for dinner. And I said to my boys the one night, I'm like, you'll notice we're not having salad, and we're going to keep that going. And one of them was like, yes, no salad. And then the other one that really loves salad was like, oh. But it's not natural. It's not what our body knows. We want to be connected to the seasons and eat seasonally. So try to minimize as much as possible things like fresh salads, fresh fruit, and look to things that are dried, look to things that are cooked soft, especially if you're doing any kind of gut healing. Next thing is to get outside in the cold. So again, we've become this comfortable society where we keep everything 70 degrees all the time. That's like an incubation center for bacteria. And it just doesn't bless our nefesh. It doesn't make us hardy, strong people. So I tell my clients, turn your thermostat down in the winter. It's okay. You can survive in a 65-degree house. You can even survive in a 60-degree house or lower, but keep it a little bit cooler so our body is able to connect with the fact that it is winter. And then get outside in the cold, even if it's just going out to check on your animals in the morning or to go check mail or just to do a quick walk around your house, whatever. Check on your plants, whatever, but get outside in the cold if you can, first thing in the morning. It's a good reset for your body. It helps your body to know, hey, it's winter. You're getting sun in your eyes. We'll talk about circadian rhythm in a minute. But that's what we would naturally do if we lived according to our design. We would be in the cold weather. We would come into our tents, our dwellings, whatever, and we would have some warm teas. We would, drink hot broths and soups. So the cold is purposeful. And when we get too cold, we come in and we warm up with warm foods. Chinese medicine will tell us it's really important to eat warm foods in the winter or doing any kind of healing. After I had a baby, my Chinese medicine friend and doctor would say, make sure you're eating lots of warm foods, because in Chinese medicine, birth is an event where you need a lot of healing afterwards. So warm foods, try to stick to just warm foods. And again, if you can get outside, go for even just a quick 5 to 10 minute walk, morning, afternoon, and evening, even in the snow. One of my best friends, she's always sending me these little Marco Polo videos, and she's out in 33-degree weather, just walking around. So make sure you're getting outside. Come in and warm up with some herbal teas. I love Don's herbal teas. They have those in the Chook store. I've made so many tinctures from his blends, but those are wonderful teas to drink. They're very healing to many different of the body systems. But soft, warm, hearty foods made with stock, broth, lots of teas, that's what you want to focus on. And then being outside, like I mentioned, is a great circadian rhythm reset. So we want to try to avoid these blue lights as much as possible. Try to have a rule for your phone where you're not looking at it until 9 a.m., not until after you've gotten some outside sunshine or sat in a window. If you live in a really cold area and you can't get outside, like the Dakotas or something, just sit in a window with the sunlight hitting your eyes in the morning while you're reading, while you're drinking your tea, coffee, whatever. But try to get that light in your eyes. And then when the sun goes down, really try to shut off screens. It's tricking our body. It's not helping our circadian rhythm. It's causing a lot more health problems than we realize. What we started doing about 6 months or so ago was in the evening, my husband bought these oil lamps. And so as soon as the sun goes down, we try not to turn on lights during the day. We just let the natural light come into our house and live on that. And then in the evening, we will turn on these oil lamps. And so it's very soothing. It helps, falling asleep to be so much easier. You can use candles, but try to minimize those bright lights even in your house once the sun goes down. And I get it, like being on podcasts. I love watching this podcast, watching the different things. But even if you can avoid watching the screen, if you can just have it playing and listening to the talking, that is helpful as well too. But it's a great brain reset to give ourselves a break from these screens. Sabbath is a wonderful time to do that. I have a Faraday bag and I'll throw my phone and my iPad in that bag and not touch it all day on the Sabbath, most of the day. Sometimes I get out of the habit and then I'm like, okay, I got to reel it back in. But give yourself an entire day off of screens at least once a week. And then try to get to bed shortly after the sun goes down. And I know that's hard. But even if you can commit to 2 to 3 days a week, winding down once the sun goes down, doing a puzzle, having good conversation with family, reading a book, and then going to bed at a decent time, it really does do a lot to reset our bodies and connect us with the seasons. Okay, we're going to move on to emotional healing. So in Aleph body therapy and in Chinese medicine, when we're talking about digestion, we're talking about the solar plexus area. So the plexus is this congealing of nerves. It's where all these nerves come together in your body. And really, when they're powered up according to how we're made to be, it makes like this liquid crystal. It's amazing. We don't have that kind of powered up energy now. Hopefully we're going to get back to it. But that has to do a lot with stomach, has to do a lot with digestion. And the color yellow. Yellow has to do with worry. So when we're talking about digestive health, winter healing, we're talking about letting go of worry, releasing anxiety. When we are able to feel what's going on in the body energetically, when that first cycle is off, that has to do with the solar plexus, digestion, worry. It's very buzzy. It almost feels electrical. And that's just kind of how we are tending to live these days. We feel rushed, when we're on screens a lot, we feel like this electrical buzzing energy. So it's a time to really slow all that down, to get away from the stress of life, really, and limit your schedule. Start to spend more time winding down in the evening than you do ramping up. Using lamps, using candles in the evening. Try to avoid LED lights as much as possible. Thank you, George Bush, for that. But sit in a window if you can't get outside. Like I mentioned, it really does wonders for your hormones and for resetting your melatonin cycle, your serotonin cycles, all of your good hormones. So releasing worry is a big part of that. Hibernation is a good analogy when it comes to releasing worry. So the animals that hibernate trust that they have what they need to get through the winter. They're not stressing. They've done what they've needed to do, and now it's time to sleep. It's time to rest. And in Hebrews 4:9, it says, there's therefore a Sabbath rest for the people of Elohim. So go and just read through Hebrews 4:9 through 12. That is an amazing example of how we can just enter into that rest. A lot of times we don't want to stop our striving. We feel like we've got to go, go, go. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And I find the more that I am on my screens throughout the day, the more I feel that anxiety to get more done. I've got to do this. But the more I put it away, the more I'm present in the presence with my family, with the tasks right in front of me, the more I'm able to just let go of that. So letting go of worry and anxiety and just really entering into rest. Breath work is amazing. I teach my clients to really take time to take 3 deep, purposeful breaths before we eat our food. That helps digestively. It helps stimulate the vagus nerve, which slows down your entire fight or flight response. It helps you go into rest and digest. And so try not to eat in a rush. Try to slow down, really, breathe in your food, enjoy what you have in front of you, and take those good, purposeful, deep breaths. Every morning when you get up, start with 3 good, deep breaths before you jump into any activity. As you're going to bed at night, take nice, good, deep breaths. Something else we can do to help work on our first cycle, which helps our digestion, which helps with emotional worry, is holding your thumb. So when you're laying in bed, you can hold your thumb, and that helps bring almost instant calm and peace to your body. So That Sabbath rest is powerful, and that brings us to our spiritual element. If we are looking to heal spiritually in this season, we are looking to really rest in the promises of Messiah. And I think for those of us who have been in this Torah walk for a while, we realize that we keep these righteous instructions of our Father not because we're striving, not because we're trying to earn something, but because we're resting in the promises. We're resting in the goodness of our Creator. And so, just like He rested on the seventh day from all His works, we get to rest in knowing that the work is finished. And our job is just to stay connected and let that flow through us. Let the righteousness, the glory of our Creator flow through us. And the best way to let that flow is to keep our temples unclogged, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Like I mentioned before, this season is associated with Joseph and dreaming, the tribe of Joseph, so Ephraim and Manasseh, and really just honing into getting more sleep, allowing Elohim to speak to us in the night while we're dreaming, because there is so much to be said about how we're processing things with how we dream. And when you get into deep sleep, when you get into sleep that really replenishes your body, most of the time you do dream. It's also a time to really just press into trust. So knowing that we have everything we need, knowing that we are taken care of, that His eye is always on us, and that we can just trust that He's going to provide, He's going to take care of all the things, all the to-dos. We just need to be present. We need to be connected in our day-to-day. So as you're really praying and pressing in spiritually to what it looks like this winter to heal your gut, what is keeping you from resting? Ask the Father, what is keeping you from really resting in Him? And then dreaming, asking for dreams, asking for deeper sleep so you can really connect when all your to-dos are shut down, when your brain is just not wanting to shut off. When we can just really rest and dream, that's when we can receive a lot in the night season. And then trusting, releasing that striving, releasing that I have to do it all, and trusting that our Father is good, that He takes care of us in and out of every season. All right, I'm a big proponent of LifeWave patches. I think they are amazing. Noel and I talked a little bit about X39 when I was on a few months ago, but there are so many other different patches, and one of my favorites is one called Silent Nights. And I forgot to get my little envelope out, but you can probably find it if you click on the X39 link in the Took page. But if you want more information, please reach out to me. What I love about the Silent Nights patch is that it is a patch that you put on your body before you go to sleep at night, and it stimulates your body to make its own melatonin. So like melatonin supplements and gummies have gotten popular in the last 10 years or so. And I'm always like, melatonin is a hormone. It's a hormone. How are they making these gummies? I mean, they say they make them from plants a lot of the time, like taking that hormone from the plants. But anyway, it's a synthetic, it's an extract. If your body can make its own melatonin, that's all the better. So there have been several times when I've just not been able to shut my brain off, not been able to fall asleep for whatever reason. I put on a Silent Nights patch and I'm out within a few minutes. When I travel, I am a homebody by nature. I love to be in my home, in my own bed. So the first night that we were traveling somewhere, I usually have a hard time falling asleep. So I put on a Silent Nights patch and it helps tremendously. So once again, it's information. It's telling your body to make something in a way that it understands. It's speaking the language that your body understands, which is energy, which is sound waves, which is light. And so that little patch that you put on, I put it on my foot, and there's a little diagram that shows you where to put it. But it tells my body to make melatonin. It tells my body, okay, time to get into the night cycle, time to slow down, time to produce more of this hormone. So that is a wonderful reset. I know Dawn has a couple of teas that help with sleep and relaxation. Those are awesome. Keeping your immune system strong will help with your sleep rhythms as well. So lots of garlic, elderberry syrup. Again, lots of broth and stock are incredibly healing for your gut, and they also are great for pain relief, inflammation, and they help you sleep better at night. I did an episode called Eat to Heal with my friend where we talked about the GAPS diet and healing through broth and soft cooked foods. It just got released back on YouTube because they shadow banned it because they thought it was going against the narrative. So thankfully they released that back again. So that is on my channel, and I'll post a link to that as well. But remember, winter is the time to really reset, replenish and repair, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. So I know that was a lot of information. Feel free to go back and rewatch this if you need to. And you can check out ancientpathswellness.org. That's my website. You can connect with me there. Again, I'll post some links below to some podcasts that I've already recorded that touch on some of these topics. But thanks for joining me. I'm going to open it up for questions. And if anybody has questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat. I did good. I did under 30 minutes. But I'm a fast talker, so I know that was a lot in there. Some great comments. Vicky says she uses oil lamps. Yeah, the ones we have like a glass thing on it, and it's really neat because I think it's, again, a beautiful analogy of keeping our lamps clean, keeping our temple clean so that we can really burn brightly. So Rick Johnson said, even Yaz builders, the beavers rest on Shabbat. That's awesome. Yeah, I live in West Texas. Noel said, unless you live in Florida, then 70 degrees is about as cold as it gets. I mean, it gets down to the 60s sometimes. They all freak out and put on their wool socks and sweatshirts. And people up north are like, what is wrong with you? But yeah, I live in West Texas, so it's warm most of the time. We had an 80-degree day yesterday for Shabbat. And so my husband was like, everybody outside. Nobody should be inside today. I went for a nice long hike. It was wonderful. So yeah. Got some great comments in here. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. Okay, Pamela, can you mention the winter healing foods again? Absolutely. So anything soft and warm. You don't want to be eating raw foods in the winter, especially if you want to heal your gut. It goes against our body's natural design. We were made to eat soft, cooked, warm foods. So again, think ancestrally. They would hunt. They would use what they had gathered up for the season. They would have a lot of dried herbs and things. So any kind of soups. I mean, winter is soup season. Eat lots and lots of soups. There is a difference between stock and broth, and we talk about that in the podcast that I'll post below. But typically, if you have a lot of gut issues like Crohn's, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut, you want to start by making a soup that's cooked in stock and not broth. Broth it's become like a trend thing, like bone broth this, bone broth that. But if you're cooking something for like 12 to 24 hours, it's a powerhouse of nutrients, but it's also full of histamines, which your body really can't handle when you're trying to heal your gut. So stock, you're cooking the chunk of meat, the bones, whatever, for 3 to 4 hours max. And then you're throwing in your veggies, you're throwing in your meat, your rice, whatever. But I try to stockpile on my stock. I make a lot of stock at a time, probably like every other day. I'll just throw like a chunk of deer meat or a whole chicken or whatever in the pot, beef bones. And then whatever I don't use for cooking, I put it in glass mason jars and I put it in the back of the fridge. If you're not going to use it right away, you can freeze it. You want to try to eat it within 24 to 48 hours, again, to keep the histamine load low. But you can also freeze it. And I've been able to freeze my broth or my stock in glass jars without a problem, as long as you make sure it's well cooled before you pour it in, put it in the back of the fridge for a day, half a day, and then put it in the freezer. And then to defrost it, I go in reverse. I take it from the freezer to the back of the fridge, to the front of the fridge, then on the counter. So as long as you do that carefully, the glass shouldn't crack, and it's a great way to store your stock. So hopefully I answered that for you, Pamela. Just lots of soup, fresh milled bread, butter. I'm a big fan of good grass-fed butter. But if I missed something, please ask again. You can find me at ancientpathswellness.org. And the name of my channel, I just changed it to Ancient Paths Wellness. I'll post a link to that in the comments, so you can find that. Yeah, the histamines in bone broth is a real thing. So a lot of times people were trying to heal their gut and they were drinking lots of bone broth, and it was actually causing more problems because of the histamines. I mean, histamines are a good thing. It's how people preserve food. It's in all ferments, but unfortunately, we have so many histamines in our body already that our liver is just like so overloaded with processing it, and so that's why a lot of people have more allergies and histamine issues, is because their cup is already so full. Adding more on top of it just makes it overflow. So yeah, yeah, it's soup season. Winter is soup season for sure. And then again, worry. It's a great time to release worry, because worry is connected to the gut. You ever hear the term nervous stomach? They have a nervous stomach. The nerves, anxiety, stress, worry are directly connected to the solar plexus, which is so fascinating. All these like phrases we've heard for our whole lives, like, oh, she just has a nervous stomach, because nervousness, worry is connected to the digestive system. So what about fermented foods like kimchi? Good question. Um, Fermented foods are wonderful. Again, they're high in histamine. So as long as you can tolerate them, then you're good. If you feel like you're having a lot of histamine issues where you have a lot of bloating after you eat something like that, if you're having skin rashes, just excessive amounts of allergies, then you want to go on a low histamine diet if possible. And again, that's just making sure your food isn't stored in the fridge too long, because leftovers breed a lot of histamines. Um, Drinking your chicken stock or your beef stock right away, or using it within 24 hours, and then just eating foods that haven't got much fermentation in them. That does help. So it's something you can do for a time just to help lower your histamine load and lower the response of your body to histamines, but it doesn't have to be a permanent thing. Histamines are great for us. They're there for a reason. And as far as kimchi, is kimchi too much for gut healing? It just really depends on the person. A good rule of thumb is, I mean, I love kombucha. I've drank kombucha for years and brewed my own kombucha. If you can have a small portion of whatever ferment you're talking about, so like let's say kimchi, eat it on an empty stomach or drink it on an empty stomach if it's in the case of kombucha, and then see what happens. If you have bloating right away, or if you feel in your body, a lot of times we just don't tune into our bodies. And so that's another thing I'm really passionate about, is paying attention to our temple, tuning into our temple. How do we feel within 30 minutes of eating something? Because you feel it right away if you're paying attention. So, Pamela, if you have the kimchi, eat a small amount on a mostly empty stomach and see how you feel 30 minutes later. If you feel great, then you know that you're fine with it. But if you have any kind of bloating, or you just feel tired, or itchy, then it's probably time to take a break from the kimchi. That's a great question, though. Yeah, and we really do, in a sense, we are meant to hibernate a little bit in the winter. We're meant to go to bed with the sun. I know that's hard, but we're meant to get way more sleep. So I'm not great at that. Usually, after all the kids are in bed, my husband and I just want to hang out or talk. But the more we can do that, the better. So I'm making that my goal now that we're officially in the winter solstice, to be in bed shortly after the sunset, like within an hour of it getting dark outside. So like 7:30 for us, to be in bed around 7:30, 8 o'clock, even if I'm not asleep, but just to be in bed at least 3 nights a week. So the best thing is to just set a goal for yourself. I mean, what is your intention? Be purposeful about it. If it's eating more seasonally, then just set a meal plan. Purpose yourself to make that stock or that broth at the beginning of the week, and then eat on it the rest of the week. Freeze some for later. Again, with screens, Faraday bags are awesome, because you can just put it in that bag, and I put mine in the back of my closet. I don't even think about it. But to give yourself a Sabbath, a day off from screens and phones, is a wonderful brain reset. And yeah, lots of teas. Winter is a great time to drink lots of warm teas. And yeah, another great question, Pamela. So breads are amazing. I could do a whole talk on bread and the bread of life, but we were meant to eat grains. We see that all throughout Scripture. They were making bread, eating bread. The problem with bread now, as most people know, is it's been hybridized. It's been sprayed with all these poisons, and so you have to kind of source your grain in a better way. You can get sourdough at most grocery stores now. I like to say there's good, better, and best. So getting sourdough at a grocery store is good. Better would be to mill your own grains and make your own bread. I have a really simple bread recipe I'm happy to share with anybody, but it's just yeast, salt, grain, the flour from the grains, and water. And then best would be to find organic, non-hybridized grains. I love Azure Standard. We try to get most of our food from them, but we do a lot of organic spelt grain because it's a lower gluten index, or organic einkorn grain. So einkorn's like an ancient grain. It hasn't been hybridized. Spelt, there's some hybridization of spelt, but not as much. I'm not a big wheat fan, but I have friends that make wheat bread from whole wheat berries or hard red or hard white wheat, and it's great bread. So yeah, I think if you can eat bread the right way, the ancient way, then it can be a huge benefit to your body because it really does have every essential nutrient in it. You want to talk about like a complete food, protein, fiber, a little bit of fat, carbs in perfect balance. It's fresh milled bread. So that's great. And he calls himself, the bread of life. I'm the bread of life. Oh, Sarah Hadley also gave a great recipe for sourdough bread. Awesome. Maybe Noel can share that on here, or Sarah. Okay, and I'll text it in the chat as well. But Phil asked, please share your bread recipe. So I mill about 3 cups of the grains, of the spelt grains. So you put it in your mill, grind it up. A lot of people, if you don't have a mill, you can even use like a Vitamix. They work really well. You just have to be a little bit more patient with it. But grind up your flour. I use 3 to 4 cups, depending on how big you want your loaf to be. 3 to 4 cups of the flour. Add in a tablespoon of yeast. Try to get a good quality yeast. We get ours from Natural Grocers, or you can get some from Azure Standard. I've learned a lot about how they weaponized yeast, so try not to get some of those major brands from the grocery store if you can avoid it. Or do it sourdough style. I have not mastered fresh milled bread sourdough style, so I'm hoping that'll be something I can tackle down the road. But I just make a simple loaf with 3 to 4 cups of the flour, a tablespoon of good quality yeast, about a teaspoon of salt, and then I try to add a tablespoon of either honey or coconut sugar, because if it has a little bit of sugar in it, it helps it rise better. I mix that up with a whisk, and then you add about 2 to 3 cups of water. You want it nice and hydrated, not too sticky and dense, but not too watery. And honestly, it's better to trend on the side of too watery than too dense, because the water really does help it get fluffy and airy. So once that's mixed up, that mixture, I put it in my oven on the bread proof setting, or you can just put it in your oven with the light on if you don't have bread proof. But just put it in a warm area with a loose cotton cover over it, and let that sit for about an hour. You can even go as long as 3 hours, but if you're in a rush, you can do it shorter. So an hour to 3 hours. Once you see it kind of bubbly and it's risen a bit, go ahead and preheat your oven to 450. That seems really hot, but it makes a crispy loaf of bread that's soft on the inside. So 450, you're going to butter or grease your pan. I like a stoneware pan. I feel like that's the cleanest, an uncoated stoneware pan, or you can use glass. So grease that really well. Put it in the oven first, because then it gets the pan kind of hot and helps the bread be crispier on the outside. Once that's preheated to 450, I pull the pan out. I put the bread mixture in the pan, and then I bake it. And it only really takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes. You just have to set a timer and check it. But when you can poke a toothpick through it or a fork and it comes out mostly clean, then you know it's done. Let it rest in the pan for a few minutes, but then you want to flip it out of the pan, because then it makes it kind of soggy and soft. So flip it out of the pan, let it sit on a cooling rack, or even like on your stovetop if you have like the grated stovetop. And yeah, and then you can cut it after you let it rest about 10 to 15 minutes, and it makes awesome bread. So sometimes if I don't want to make a really complicated meal for lunch for the kids, I'll just make 2 loaves of bread and we'll just have bread and butter and put like lots of good quality salt on top. And I'm like, this is perfect. This is an ancient meal. We don't need 5 different things. And that's the other thing too. We need to get back to eating very simply, because we have, you have a meal that you feel like is a good meal. You have something hot and you have something cold, and you have a dessert, and you have all these sides. And it's okay to just have a meal of just mashed potatoes with butter, or, just a roasted slice of beef, side of beef, whatever, just a big loaf of bread. It's okay to have simple meals like that. And actually, our body really thanks us when we do. Okay. Bread recipe. How about milk curds and calf, the 3 visitors to Abraham's diet? Yes, that is a great point. I recently watched a video with Jordan Rubin. He was an amazing inspiration to me at the beginning of my health journey, like 20 years ago or so. But he wrote a book called The Maker's Diet. So I've done The Maker's Diet. Always good to do that in the spring or summer, because it's a lot of veggies and fruit. Again, you're working against your body if you do something like that in the winter. But he just published a new book called The Biblio Diet, and he studied what Solomon had at his table every day. And it was like grass-fed beef, so the cattle, fresh milled bread, or, bread. And then I think he had milk in there too. So yeah, that kind of blows the whole don't boil a kid in its mother's milk theory that we're not supposed to have milk and meat together, because obviously Abraham did. I do think your body uses different digestive enzymes for those two. So, again, it's good to keep things simple, but he was making a nice meal for his visitors. So he was having those 3 things. We have lots of white wheat berries. Do you have that recipe? Okay, so hopefully you heard that recipe, Phil. If not, then I'll type it up and post it in the comments. Okay, I don't know if this question is for me. Linda Nixon, are you in Rochester, New York? I am actually in San Angelo, Texas. That's where my office is. And then we live a little bit north of there, in the middle of nowhere. We like it that way. So yeah, if you're in Texas, you can come see us at the Ancient Paths office. We are located in San Angelo, Texas. So. And we do work remotely with clients as well. We're able to do biofeedback with people all over the country. Actually, I recently just had a client in Ireland. So that was pretty cool. And we got to work together and do biofeedback. So just like this technology works, we can be from all over the country, all over the world even, and converging with this, cell communication. It's the same way that our bodies work. So we can do biofeedback with people remotely. Yeah, the mashed potato meal. My husband could live off of meat, honestly. He could just be a carnivore. We were having dinner with some new friends the other night, and we were talking, you start talking certain buzzwords, and then you realize, oh yeah, okay, they're in the club. So they were talking about how they healed their one son's psoriasis by doing the Lion's diet. I had never heard of the Lion's diet, but it's basically just grass-fed beef, salt, and honey. That's all you eat. And they said within a few days, his psoriasis completely cleared up, and he got like all this tremendous healing. So there is something to be said about those simple meals and eating meat. I had made this comment on the podcast that was done with Uncle Chucky and Don. I think everybody has to do what's best for their body. I mean, the Father will lead you. Let the Ruach lead you in that. And there are times and seasons to eat just fruits and veggies, but I really do think, especially where we're at now, historically, our bodies just need meat to rebuild and repair. And we've seen that with how well stock and broth and things like clean meat work to heal the body and detox. So, but I always like to say everybody's different. So take what we talked about today, pray about what you can implement, ask the Father to show you what are some ways you can start doing these things today, this week, and just tune into your body, because our body is always speaking. Our body is speaking the language of creation. And most of the time we're too busy or worried to tune into that. So winter, again, is a time for that involution. It's really to go inward. to examine the things in our own heart, to look for those blockages that keep us from proper communication with our source, with our creator, our Elohim, and look for those physical things that we can do as well to help unclog our lamps and keep our temples clean and bright. All right. I'll just wait a couple more minutes and see if those are any more questions out there. Oh yeah, eggs are a wonderful source. Yeah, I will say, living out on a ranch, so we moved out to the ranch about 4 years ago, and we purposed ourselves to try to live off the land as much as possible. And we found out really quickly it's a lot easier to raise animals than it is to grow food in West Texas. We're still trying. I still have my herb gardens, and we have good and bad years, but yeah, there is really something to be said about the sacrifices, and even in the lamb at Passover, how meaningful that was, because it's, you raise animals and they become kind of like these sweet little pets that you have all around. We don't let them in the house. We're not into parasites that much, but we just did it. Anytime I say we just did some butchering, my friends laugh because you mean your boys? Because I don't, former vegetarian, don't have the stomach for that kind of thing. I hang out in the house and bake something, but my boys just harvested about 28 of our chickens that we raised for meat, and then 3 turkeys, and they're getting ready to do some goats this week on the 25th, actually. So they're going to do some goat butchering, and it's a very almost sacred thing. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not easy, but I'm grateful that we get to raise our own meat and pray over them, and I guess dedicate that back to the Father as we do it. So you really start to appreciate where your meat comes from when you start raising it and doing it yourself. But like I said, my boys get all the credit for that. I tell my husband, bring it into the house, how it would look if I got it at the grocery store. So he does. I have a whole bag of chicken feet in my freezer I need to give to my very crunchy friend she makes delicious stock and broth, but she uses like feet and heads and all kinds of weird stuff. And I'm like, ugh. Bring it to me how I would see it in the store. All right. I think we'll probably end it early tonight, but I'm excited to do this every month, to partner with Took to put out these temple restoration topics. Next month, I'll post what the topic is going to be on, but it's something that goes along with the seasons and how our body was made to heal in the creative order. So reach out if you have any questions. Again, you can find me at ancientpathswellness.org to find out more about my practice, and I'll post those links to the videos below. But yeah, this was great, and I'll see everybody next month for the next talk. Shalom.
Hey guys, Polyhard here, and I just want to let you know you have the opportunity to be awesome. How can you be awesome, you ask? Well, by supporting our work in the ministry, by going to the links below here and saying, you know what, I would like to see the entire Paleo-Hebrew Bible come out, and I want to see all these other Bibles and books and works that Noel's doing, and have them edited. And we're doing that by supporting Pam and Rebecca, and also the rest of everybody else. So please go below and pray. Say, you know what should I do? Should I give $1? Should I give nothing? Should I just pray harder? Should I give $5,000? Whatever he directs you to do, let's do that. Have a good day. Bye.